Hey, how's it going? Today I'm going to do something a little different that I haven't done in a while. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it because I do want to do what I normally do. But today I'm going to go back to doing a Spirit TV Critic episode because I saw an episode today of a show. Well, this episode was from 1959, and the show was called One Step Beyond, and it seems to be an American analog show, like Twilight Zone or Black Mirror or Outer Limits. You get the picture. So, the episode I watched was from 1959, and it was called The Bride Possessed, which I immediately zoomed in on it, honed in on it, whatever. I was like, that one I have to watch because of the possessed part, because that's just something that is of interest to me, is paranormal stuff. And that, like I said, that pinged when I saw it. So it's in black and white, which I respect. I like it. But the reason I'm talking about it is because this show, anthology, not analog. I knew there was something wrong with that. As far as the other similar series. Anyway, at the end of the episode, which is about newlyweds, and then the title pretty much explains what happens in the episode. And I'll just spoil this episode from a show that's not really anywhere. I don't know where it is. It's it would be in syndication, but for some reason, in Hollywood, California, there was a lot of syndicated TV when I was a kid, before there was cable and streaming and internet and all of that stuff. So, for a long time, almost everything was, oh gosh, it could have been 40, 50 years older than the current day, And then there'd be a little bit of new stuff, but the viewing selection is far superior these days, I can tell you that. But anyway, for some reason, that show was not in syndication in my area, and I think I only knew about it because of, hanging out in comic book shops, and then there'd be these sort of regular magazine type situations, and then they were entertainment press. So there were definitely magazines that talked about the Outer Limits and the Twilight Zone, and there are other shows that are just not coming to mind. There were some, it seems like from Great Britain or England that I used to see. Definitely Doctor Who, but it just seems weird, in retrospect, why that show was not playing. Maybe that's something to investigate. But anyway, the story starts out, they're newlyweds, they're all happy, and then for reasons I guess I'll just hold back, so there's something to discover if you decide to watch the episode that I plan to link here. And then happy, then they arrive on their way somewhere, and possession happens, and then they have the rest of the episode is getting her unpossessed, basically, which no one actually had a hand in it, because everyone was like, wait, is this what I think it is? I don't want to say. It's kind of wild. It's kind of crazy. I'm not sure exactly what that was meant to convey, except it was probably realistic. Should such a situation arise, that kind of reaction to the phenomena would have been mystified at the very least. I think as far as being afraid, that goes deeper, because what there was to fear about it is tangentially connected to other things that are like cultural or upbringing related, but all of it like sort of intimately personal as far as shaping our view through our prisms or filters or whatever. I mean, just talking about it openly, in certain circles, I guess it would have been done, but in small circles, I think, like then as now, paranormal phenomena, until people experience it or just happen to be open to stuff that's unusual and not easily explained, then it's denied, laughed at, it's mocked and ridiculed, and so if you're talking about it, you're going to be on either the person getting mocked and ridiculed side, which is probably going to be lonely, and then the side of everybody else doing the other stuff. So I just felt like, it was only a half-hour show, so give it a break. But I just wanted to give some context, because I wasn't around until 63. 59 is like old to me now. It was old then. Had I seen it, it would have been right up there with all that other black and white syndicated series that were playing. So the story construction was really good. The acting was pretty good. Like actually, the possession part, I can't say that I would know how to portray it either, but the thing about it is, possession doesn't necessarily mean like it's going to be demonic. Like if you've ever watched the Dead Files, the one of the hosts is this woman named Amy Allen, and she's a psychic medium, and because she has those abilities or physical capabilities, she's like both more open and then able to kind of deflect or at least see what's happening as far as, undead people, energies that are wanting to apparently jump inside of people to experience life again, or momentarily possess them, or influence them, affect their behavior, and vicariously relive through people. And it's definitely, I think, a form of possession, but I think we're all collectively like, possession means devil and demon. Not necessarily. And, I don't think when you're like having a conversation with someone and they acted strangely and you say, what possessed you to do that? I don't think they're talking about Beelzebub jumping you and, making you all evil devil person. And, okay, so, at least two kinds of possession, I would say, are viable as far as there's enough consensus that the phenomena exists, right? Okay, so the other thing was what I have learned from living in a place that was, a lot of stuff there happened that people that lived in haunted houses talk about, but then some other stuff that actually, now that I think of it, was kind of momentarily possession related. So this place that I lived at where there was phenomena, like definitely the night of the day before I left, the morning that I left, I had literal sounds of, like, for instance, the front door. Like, I was there alone with the dog, and I knew that my roommates were not going to be back until early in the morning, and so I had the door locked, and then there was one of those silly little chains that, I think if you kick the door open, that chain's not going to hold on. I think it's just going to pop off. So, and then I knew that I had to have it off of there when my roommates came back. So, but I was expecting them back like in the wee hours of that night. I didn't know that they were going to end up. I don't even know when they came back, because when the sun was up and like it was safe kind of to leave and leave the dog alone, relatively. There was much less activity during the day. Although I don't know, I feel really guilty now about leaving the dog alone, but I do know that when I left at 7:30 in the morning and they were like an hour and a half away or an hour and 15 minutes away, driving back from where they had been overnight, like, at least 3 people that went on that trip had to be at work, at like 8 o'clock in the morning. So when I left at 7:30, I didn't feel too bad about leaving the dog alone, but I had to GTFO because I just had like a directly personal scary experience, although I was jousting with that thing like the whole time I was there. Like, I knew there were a few occasions when I knew it was immediately clear that it was trying to make me do something, and I was like, I ain't doing that. That would have gotten me kicked out of my lodging. So I was like, fuck off. So there was like a level of communication with it, but I wasn't trying to do that, It was only if it was sort of provoking me to have to say stop, like leave me alone. So, but that night, that last night, here's what happened. Like I said, I had the door locked and had thrown the chain, and I knew one of our regular group had not gone with them on this trip, and I knew that they would often come over even though they didn't live there, and it was as if they were in another home, and that was expected. So here's the thing about the chain on the door. I was awake, and I knew I'd be up because I'm a night owl, I knew I'd be up until the wee hours anyway. This other person that I was just talking about that did not go to this show, it was very slim, and I knew that if anyone could do it, he could get that skeleton arm in there and just unhook the chain. So I don't know if that was sort of snatched out of my head and used against me, but I also knew at the time, which was before the profusion of ghost show stuff that there is now, I knew of phantom noises that they could make to trick you for whatever ghost logic reason they have for doing it, just to mess with you. So, well, sometimes they have stuff to tell you, but I don't know what this was telling me except get out of here, like hurry up and leave. And I'm like, I am really trying. Shut up. Sorry. One of those conversations in my head that I felt like I would have frequently when I'd just be sitting there trying to read and pass time. I'd be feeling like, is it time for you to go yet? And I'd be like, knowing this thing is in my head, I'd be having this conversation like, I can't go anywhere yet. Like, I can't go anywhere right now. Get off me. I'm not going to just walk out the door and get out of here. Those are the kind of thoughts I would have going through my head, and that wasn't just like, I wasn't like inventing an imaginary friend in my early 20s, to entertain myself. Like I said, this is interrupting my reading schedule. So, like, those are ways that I experienced it, but way more unpleasant ways was when I was asleep. Then it was really, like, not cool at all. Like, I don't have nightmares very often, and except for that place, I never had the same nightmare as the other 5 people in the house, where we all got up at the same time and came out and said, were we, and we were all, yeah. It's like, holy, how can you sleep with that kind of crap going on? So, I could laugh about it now, and we laughed about it a little bit then, because, if you don't laugh a little bit, there's no way to relieve the fear from something like... There was a couple who were the leaseholders of this place, and everybody else was a roommate. And so everyone else could, leave because of this thing happening and happening to us. Everybody but the leaseholders could easily just split, right? Compared to the leaseholders with the obligations, right, of the lease. And so here's the other thing that didn't happen when I was there, but I did have a sense of the feel, it was there, so I was feeling it. I had a sense of what might have driven this thing to do what I'm about to tell you it did, that I wasn't there to witness, but the leaseholders had been there several years at this location in LA, in the valley, and while they were there, I think 3 cars had come flying off the off-ramp, or on-ramp, in the back of the house, which was an incline, and so, you were just gaining speed to get on the freeway, and it was a straight shot to merge onto the freeway, and every one of those cars just suddenly went woo and took a sharp right turn, which put them in the parking lot behind the building of this place, and they were fatal each time. And I looked it up. It was true. You could, in the paper, at the time, you could go to the library and look in the microfiche, and they had no reason to believe these people would lie about it anyway. They were kind of religious, sort of service-attending people. They did a non-denominational thing, but they did it every week, and they weren't Jesus people. They didn't quote. They didn't talk about religious stuff all the time. Going to the church was the only thing, but you definitely maybe it was have you ever been around Mormons? They were not Mormons. They don't really share much of what they do as Mormons, worship-wise. You would be invited, but then you would be expected to join. And so I have never, accepted their invitations, but there's just a certain vibe about them. They're talking to you and they're pretty normal, but they're also there to door-to-door sell Mormonhood to you. And I used to turn them away for years, and then probably about 10 years ago I started letting them in and talking to them, because they're just young people doing this mission thing. And then I also, started happening here in this place where I live now, and then also here in the state where I'm living now, up north from here. I used to live in a place, I don't want to mention the city, but it's up north from here, and one of my good friends of a group was a Mormon, but I didn't know it until he one day was saying that he was going to leave because he had to go on his mission, and I was like, mission? Military? And he's like, no, Mormon. And I was like, you're a Mormon? Turns out I knew lots of Mormons and didn't know it. But that's what I'm getting at. Before, I guess, they do their Mormon thing, and even after, they're still just people. They can blend in to the rest of the society like they live. I don't know, if you hear what they want to do, it's kind of scary. It's kind of weird. I don't want to talk about it. But anyway, religious people have a vibe. And so they had it, but they they knew all of the boarders in their house, all of the roommates from the punk rock scene in Hollywood, in California, in LA, or just where, like, they were into punk rock. Hey, you meet a lot of different kinds of people in Los Angeles. And all of us were native Angelinos, by the way, not these imports from out of state. Anyway, so yeah, back to the cars going back in the lot and like basically ending people, because the entity would get mad and they would feel it in the house, like depending on who happened to be living there at the time, they would be affected. But you could definitely feel when something was up with that thing. Like, I was there for a good long time, and then I noticed nothing, and no one said a word about this until one day I went to use this bathroom that was right, like, you could just open this door in the kitchen and it was a little half bath. And I just went in there. No one was in the kitchen when I went in there. And then, or they were actually, and I just opened up the door and went in there. And then when I came out, everybody was just looking at me. And then there was a couple of guys there, and we were all in our early to mid 20s. And the guys were like snickering and whispering together, and I kept hearing them say Casper. And I was all, what are you guys talking about? What are you guys laughing about? And then one of the like older adults, who was the lease owner, the wife, she didn't say anything either, but she was just all, oh yeah, you shouldn't use that bathroom. And I was all, why not? It sounded like it worked. Like, and I wasn't just all, I'm just gonna use it. I'm just gonna use that room you told me not to use anyway. Shut up. But I just wanted to know, because it seemed fine. And she's like, well, and then they were snickering, and I kept hearing Casper, and I was like, what, is it a haunted toilet? And then they just fell apart, but then they got scared and, like, left the room. They might have even left the apartment. I don't know. Like, the experience was very strange there. Especially when no one had mentioned anything up to that point, and then all of a sudden, well, nothing had happened yet. Like, all that other stuff I mentioned, that hadn't happened yet. But I guess I got it active again for you using that toilet. Then I guess she told me, the wife, I'm not going to mention her name, but she told me, like, okay, well, yeah, actually it is haunted by a ghost, and, like, the whole place is. And that's when I learned about the cars coming off the freeway, and, you know, people having weird experiences. And she didn't tell me a whole lot of that. She just mentioned that, she told me about the cars, and, like, that really probably was enough. Like, I probably didn't need to know more. And then I was also skeptical, not of the phenomena, but I just felt like, really? It doesn't seem like it. Like, I just kind of didn't believe her. And then things started happening, and started feeling stuff, and I started seeing stuff. Like, if you've ever watched any of them ghost shows, they'll talk about, like, black stuff forming just in the air, and it looks like smoke or lace or something. So I started seeing that. And when I was talking about the influence thing, well, the husband of those people, I would have liked him just fine, but there was some unspoken underlying issue he had with me. Like, he was always waiting, or I don't know if he was waiting to, but it just seemed like a lot of times I'd say something and he'd just jump on it immediately, and it was just like, Jesus, like walking on eggshells with this guy. But I didn't want to say anything because it was like his house, and I was happy to have a place to stay because, as I mentioned, I didn't really have anywhere immediately to go to otherwise. And so we were all generally in the living room of this place because there wasn't like a television there. And so, I mean, there was, but it was like in the room that I slept in that was my bandmate, oh, never mind. I shared the room with someone. And so we generally be gathered in that front area of this sort of loft apartment doing our individual little creative projects. But the man of the house definitely had to assert his authority in certain obnoxious ways, which was kind of what an issue I had with him. Like, okay, I get it, you're the man, like, you're in charge, what you say goes, the buck, like, I get it. So that was like the sort of silent dynamic between us, but and I know he felt it, and like I'm saying, I definitely felt it. I imagine if anybody else was at all sensitive, not even like psychic sensitive, just like snark and sarcasm in people's voices, people pick up on those things. And so I remember sitting there like reading or whatever, because that was what I was usually doing, or playing guitar. And that's when I would know that that thing would be trying to get me to like start a fight with this other person. And it occurs to me right now that it was probably affecting him in the same way, like to make him behave. Like he knew he could rub us together to irritate each other. I don't know why spirits get a kick out of that, but so I told you all of that. You didn't need to know that much background, but now you know about that situation, because well, I just learned a lot about how that thing, how much those things can affect you, these sort of paranormal energies, entities, whatever you want to call it, which they were sure it was a demon, and I feel more like it was an elemental, but maybe that's something I can go into another time. But what I learned personally, and then sort of was validated later, over and over when the ghost shows came out, regardless of who was possessed, human or demonic, you know, from the other side, when the persons left the location, they didn't stay possessed. Like, I don't think even the demons were, like, they didn't stay 24/7. Like, people can be, if you ever watch, there's a, I don't know the name of it, and I'm not going to stop now to look for it. And if I try to remember to link later, if I try to remember to do the link after this, I don't have high hopes that I'll remember. So I'll just say there's an Italian documentary about an exorcist in Rome, and he talks about, and there's some documentation of exorcisms. And so what I'm going to point to here is that part of that film was he had people that were sort of outpatient possessed people. And like I said, there's documentation, and then there were some things that happened that I'm thinking of one woman, and it's like, well, there's no good reason that she should be able to do that. Or I guess good reason isn't the right way to say it. Explainable reason that sort of universally accepted. Like, a lot of people are going to be all, she couldn't possibly be possessed by a demon. Yes, there's fishing wire levitating her in that giant wooden chair. But my point is that it was almost like she came in for appointments for exorcism treatments, and the rest of the time when she wasn't there, and the thing would sort of come out when provoked by the priest. So I guess the demons can just stay there and just lurk in you, but that's what the demons do. Like, they're not just all. I'm sure it happens. There's got to be people whose sort of mental defenses are conducive to alien or demon mischief, and then also, unfortunately, weak to possession. Like, so, but the woman and the other clientele at the exorcism clinic in this documentary also went out and operated in the world. But I remember one of the men had like this depression that was so, it was visible. This, I guess, clinical depression where it's like he's constantly in a state of ideation where he wants to be really conclusive about his actions regarding his life. I'll put it that way. But he had a job and a family and operated almost as normal. So again, possession is one of those things that this is becoming like a trend. I guess it's not a trend since I'm just noticing it more and more. It's just, I guess, the reality of things is that we are so sure we know what the heck's going on, and then we think something, and I guess we sort of upholster what we think we know about whatever we're talking about, but we haven't actually experienced or seen. And then come to find out, none of it was right. Like, we didn't know what we were talking about at all. I mean, it just seems to happen over and over. So, but back to the show. Back to the show. The bride, I guess I am going to tell you stuff. In the show, here's the reason why I brought up all of what I just said. She, like, never is unpossessed, and she's not demonically possessed, so I just felt like there was a discrepancy there when there is but, even, like, some of these other places, maybe it's that there are levels to demonology. I know that that's something that exists in the classification and study of them. And the same is true of angels. There's like ascending levels or descending depending on which one you're talking about. I guess, but my point is that I feel like they got that one wrong since it was a ghost. And also that this particular ghost, they say she was only gone a year. And usually you're not that strong as this being seemed to be. They're like, I really want to, tell you what happened to me in life so that you can, get justice. And that is not, I have seen so many psychic investigator shows where they assist law enforcement, and they do not get like a complete whole story, no matter how good they are at being a psychic. Some information, like, I don't think for anyone really it's just all playing out in your mind like a documentary TV show or a short video. Everyone says they get flashes and visions, and I don't know, maybe some people get like a continuous stream of information that way, but I've yet to hear about it, except when they're dreaming, which is, psychic dreaming is extra plus dreaming, I guess, compared to someone that doesn't have that sort of facility turned on. But other than that, those were like really the only discrepancies, the only notes I had for the show. And it is nice to talk about a show, and not all of the other stuff that's going on in the world. I haven't done it for a while, but I'll tell you, I've had a number of channels on YouTube, and I've lost a few. And one of the ones that I lost, and because of my phone, and if I knew what I was doing better, I could have like transferred to the next phone, but I'm a dingbat, so... Oh, actually, I did try to transfer one channel over, and then I recently went looking for one of the videos from this channel, and they only have 15 out of like over 300 on there, and I was like, what? A lot of the stuff that I put on my channel has just been removed, and I just am discovering it at random times. I didn't get any warning or notice that, or like what was wrong with the stuff that's gone. It's a mystery. Or maybe it's not, because I, get a headache reading all that contractual fine print. It may or may not be in there. That doesn't, I don't know, that fine print thing, I think they know people are just not going to try too hard to read it. Because even if you can see it, it's just hard to get through unless, legalese, and I think they take advantage of that, and I don't know if they do tell you, like, we're just going to randomly remove inoffensive stuff that you have up there, because I don't know why, for some reason we decided, and it's like, I would like it to still be there, that's why I posted it. But anyway, you gotta be grateful for what you got. I think that's all I had wanted to say. I just had a couple of notes about the sort of behavior of a possessed person once they leave, like, the I don't know, the main location. Alright, I gotta get out of here because I got another one in the pipeline. Thank you, and good night.